Hey, IT Nation, Sean Lardo here with a brand new episode of a new potential series we're putting out for some really good education. This will be all centered around IT Nation Evolve, which is our peer groups, which we will get into in a second. We have a really good show today. We will have on today two guests. Well, one will be a primary guest ultimately, or host rather, moving forward. The other is our is our keynote speaker going into this. And I don't want to spoil everything yet. I'll get into that in a second. However, without further ado, I do want to bring on this gentleman is a good friend of mine, actually. He leads the IT Nation Evolve and OML peer groups. He was part of HTG originally, so he is old school. Also known as a stunt double for Danny Glover, and his experience really focuses on technical management, strategic planning, and business optimization. Not to mention, he is a Nebraska Cornhusker fan, so please take it easy on him. But without further ado, let's bring on Andre Gilmore, VP of IT Nation Programs.
Hey, hi, hello, IT Nation. Sean, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you feeling, sir?
All right, go Big Red.
All right. Well, we can't get into that now.
Keep moving,
It's a
keep
moot
moving.
point. Yeah, keep moving. So let's talk a little about everything. For those that may not know, and I teased it when I started this. What is IT Nation Evolve?
Sean, part IT Nation Evolve is first of all, it's a community. It's a community of very impressive people. We are celebrating our 25-year anniversary right now. Essentially, we run peer groups, and we run peer groups for primarily MSPs in the space. We do have some VAR groups, and we do those also by role. So essentially, on a regular rhythm, we bring leaders together to focus and improve on their business. What makes IT Nation Evolve different from a lot of peer groups or those type of experiences is we are just as concerned about your personal welfare and what's going on outside of business as well as what's going on within the business. So we strive to walk with leaders where they can achieve best in class performance in their businesses while focusing on things that really matter in the big scheme.
So, and what roles do you currently provide peer groups for?
So we provide peer groups for what we call direct managing directors or CEOs or owners or founders. Okay, so that's where we started. That's the primary. But we also have COO, CFO, security, sales, and did I leave anything out? No, that's it.
I think you got it all. So essentially, it's not just for owners; it's for all stakeholders. Is what you're saying? You're providing leadership
Absolutely.
in general.
Yeah, it's primarily for the leadership team, and what we found, Sean,
Mhm.
is that as the community or as our businesses have grown, um, as our businesses have grown, to get impact and significant movement within the business, you have to involve more people. So a few years
Absolutely.
ago, when the businesses were smaller, if you got the owners in the room and you coached them up and they had clear direction and vision, you could move the organization. As you get to a point where now you have to actually go back and implement change. It just helps to have more of your leadership team involved and engaged. And they need the same sort of things. They need the sounding board. They need the accountability from their peers, and they need to keep their ear to the ground on what's new in their particular roles.
Absolutely. One last question, and we'll get to the main event. Um, and this is a simple question for you. Where are these peer groups located? Are they just North America, or are they global?
No, they're global. We do them in North America. We call it the EMEA region. It's heavily based in the UK, but we also have folks from all over Europe that participate in that region, and then we have peer groups in Australia as well, right?
Awesome.
And
All
and
right.
and they meet on a quarterly rhythm, Sean. So part of what you get is a very regular interaction with your peers and a planning process, and everything kind of comes together.
Absolutely. I lied. I have one more question too. And even saying this, I thought about it. It's important, probably not even a question, but important to note that the MSPs that you work with are all range of MSP sizes. because you have multiple Evolve groups between 1, 2, 3, and
Yes,
4, correct?
absolutely. So we actually have an online program, and we look at that as kind of an emerging sort of program. So that's if these are loose guidelines, but that would be under 1.5 million in annual revenue, and they meet on a monthly cadence,
Mhm.
and so that'd be where we start with it. We typically don't go below $500,000 in annual revenue. Uh, we've made some exceptions there, but that's typically with that program. And I won't get into the details of these, but the Evolve 2, 3, and 4, they would take you from that 1.5 million all the way up to um, we would call our empire builders or private equity backed, or not even necessarily private equity, acquisition strategy type businesses. And they go up to 300-400 million plus. So, and we don't put those folks together. When you're in a peer group, you're in a group with 10 companies that are similar, that are geofenced, similarly profiled for you, so that they're dealing with the same type of challenges that you are. So
Sure. Okay, great. All right. Well, enough about you and Evolve. We got to get to the main event here. So I'm sorry. I know you would tell me so much more, but in the meantime, let's get ready. We want to bring up next. Actually, I had the privilege of this is the second live stream I'm doing with this gentleman. Before we were getting ready for IT Nation Europe, and Dan Scott and myself hosted them for Simon and I. It was 6 a.m. while we were doing this, so it's nice to be doing this at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard. And we had a chance to sit down and talk to Daniel, and his name is Daniel Priestley. He's an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and international speaker. He started with nothing, and he built a successful multi-million-dollar business. He has a couple of books out there. He has done some debates on business and how to grow. He said something to me that was that really struck a chord with me, as far as one of his biggest lines that he tells the MSPs is, "Don't chase your clients, don't chase business." So in other words, hold your ground. He is our keynote speaker at Evolve. He's going to be talking about recapturing the entrepreneurial sweet spot. So without further ado, let's bring on Daniel Priestley.
Hey guys,
What's up, man?
how you
good to be
doing,
on the
Daniel?
show again.
I know,
Didn't we have
right?
didn't we have fun in London?
You know what? Yeah, yes, you know what? It was a great, that was a great event. And I still tell people I love when you pulled up the numbers on stage, because it's something I've been preaching forever. People don't follow businesses, they follow people. And you use the examples of athletes and the teams and stuff like, and Steve Jobs and how it was Apple. And I mean, like, it's like a different, I love that, because I think, especially in the MSP space, because they don't think they have a really strong voice, but yet they're really
Yeah,
good people.
a few people hated those slides. They're like, now I'm going to have to get out there and do stuff.
Uh, well, I disagree with them. We can agree to disagree. I thought it was great. And I do have one question on that, though. Like, when you're talking to everybody, and if you're coaching somebody on this, how do you get them to do it? Like, what is there any steps you tell them? This, like, hey, do step 1 and 2 and 3, and you'll have some level of success.
Yeah, look, a lot of MSPs come from technical backgrounds. I used to own an MSP. I scaled and sold an MSP to a publicly listed company. I own a couple of software companies now. So I'm a speaker and I'm an author, but actually, primarily, I'm an entrepreneur growing and scaling my own companies. And, I totally relate to the annoyance of having to be out there and talking to people and beating the drum. And I also relate to the kind of like the shyness or the fear of kind of putting yourself out there a little bit as well. I was really quite nervous doing the big debate that happened a couple of weeks ago, where I was debating, and I knew that 3 or 4 million people would watch it, and it was like one of those big things. So like I totally relate to it for starters. But I think what most people want is they want to live in the entrepreneur sweet spot. They want to have a passion for what they do. They want to solve meaningful problems, and they want to earn great money doing it. And essentially, what I'm not saying is build yourself a personal brand because you enjoy it. I'm saying that's one of the fastest ways to get yourself into that entrepreneur sweet spot. You really want to do things that work. one of the pieces of data I think I shared on the day was that a personal brand gets 20 times the uplift of a company brand. So if you were to start a LinkedIn profile today of yourself and your business, by the time your business gets to 1,000 followers, all things being equal, you'll be at 20,000 followers. So you get 20 times the cut through on a personal brand. So I just say, look, if you want to work 20 times less hard, just use some of this stuff. This is the data. Like, make life easy for yourself.
I appreciate that. I think what people don't realize, that's also your element of marketing that you should be doing anyway. When you're trying to figure out the master key plan on how to market your business, that to me is they call it guerrilla tactics, or they call it whatever. But the reality is, MSPs have the strength of being a local business, so you should be local and generating their own brand locally.
You look at how most MSPs get started. It's not because they set up a really good looking website or a brand. It's because they knew someone and that person trusted them. So it's just leveraging that trust at scale. It's being exactly who you are, but just doing it with a little bit of scale behind it.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. So,
So
go ahead, Andre.
no, you go ahead.
I'll
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
done.
Oh, okay.
I'll ask myself my own
I just
questions.
I just wanted to set things up for our audience. So, IT Nation Evolve, the way we run the peer groups, we actually have two groups of companies that come in. One on Monday and Tuesday for their peer experience. Thursday and Friday, we've got the other group that comes in, and then we all meet together in the middle on Wednesday for what we call Community Day. And
Nice.
Community Day is where we share a variety of content. That's where Daniel will be speaking to us, and we're pretty excited about it. And one of the new things, and the reason why I'm here, is because we're opening that up to anybody in the area that's interested in coming to IT Nation Evolve to check Daniel out and some of our other content. Daniel, just talk to us a little bit about what your passions are and where they lie, and what's important to you.
I am really excited and interested and drawn to the times that we're in. We're living through really remarkable times. We've got the waves of disruption moving through the world, moving through business, and I'm a big believer that you can surf the waves or you can get dumped by the waves. We've got exciting trends. Some MSPs are sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, this AI stuff, this is really going to disrupt me and make my job harder and make me less valuable." Other people are looking at the exact same trends and saying, "Oh wow, this is going to make me more effective. This is going to make me more successful. I'm going to be more profitable." So I'm really interested in this idea of how do we surf the waves of change rather than get dumped by those. And I love this concept of finding a business that is elegant and fits what you want from business. So I really think the idea of having an elegant business model is a cool idea. And elegant is like, it's exactly the right size for what you want to achieve, for what you want to do. There's no rule that says you have to have 100 people, 200 people, 300 people. There's no rule that says you have to be at 100 million or 10 billion. There's a lot of people who say, actually, what I really want is I want a business that is 5 million a year, 1.5 million of profit, a great team. We behave really well with each other. We can pick and choose our clients, the ones that we like, and I can live with a bit of fun, freedom, and flexibility baked into my year. That's a perfectly good decision. So it's this idea of designing businesses to fit, your bigger goals, your broader goals. So I call that discovering your own entrepreneur sweet spot. And everyone's entrepreneur sweet spot. It's like golf. Some people want to play professionally. That's great. Some people want to really just enjoy golf on the weekend.
Right.
Both people are golfers. Both people are getting what they want out of it. So it's like finding the sweet spot, designing the sweet spot that's right for you.
I totally
Daniel,
appreciate that. Hey, Andre, would you lend this to our modes assessment and modes theory concept? What you just said?
so
I mean,
yeah, and what I'd say is hearing Daniel speak, and one of the reasons why we wanted to bring him in front of the community is because he talks about a bit about the entrepreneurial journey and different phases of growing and develop a business. Our modes framework is very similar and along those lines, and essentially, um, well, I guess I will get into it. What we try to do is we talk about modes as an owner mindset and what you're trying to accomplish. And that's particularly helpful in the peer groups because we can start to give you advice relative to your frame of mind so you're not all over the board and you're consistent. So in the modes theory, we've got startup companies who I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, we also refer to that as muscle and feel. That's where the entrepreneurial rocket fuel is driving so the business, and there's not much of a plan in a lot of cases, which I think is interesting, Daniel, because you do get into being a little bit more deliberate even in those early phases. And I think that'll be fascinating. We also talk about the balance builders, and Daniel, that's what you were just talking about, is folks that are that's maybe that daytime golfer sort of thing, right? So a balance builder is like, hey, I'm still in the game, but I'm looking to balance my personal life with
Yeah.
the business, and I'm extracting value out of it as we go, and not necessarily trying to sell it and create
Typically, your
value.
MSPs who are doing 7 early 8-figure revenue, and they're in that kind of zone. They typically have a core team of maybe 8 to 12 people,
Right.
and they're like, I see a lot of those balance builders, that kind of size. Is that what you see?
Yeah, definitely, and you know, sometimes the size ranges change a bit because you could be early into it depending on where you enter, but it's more focused on that mindset of where you're trying to go, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and so then we talk about value builders, and those are the folks that are looking at this thing. They've got a pretty focused mission on what they're trying to accomplish from a value creation strategy.
Yeah. Get an
Um,
exit. Get some
right.
valuation. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got pinpoint when that exit is going to be, and they're driving towards it, and all their decision making, all their focus is towards creating value, right?
Yep.
So, and then finally, we've got the empire builders, and those are the folks, which a lot of them are pretty humble and hate being called empire builders, but it's very descriptive for those. Those are the folks that are really building through acquisition, and some of them are private equity based, some of them are not, but they just continue to drive forward and they're trying to grow. They're in a
Yeah, those
hyper
those
growth
guys are
culture
the
right
ones who are actually acquiring companies. They're the ones
now.
doing the
Exactly.
buying. They get the
Right.
private equity backing behind them, and then they go and buy up a few businesses.
Right. Daniel, you talk a lot about those different phases. You're at a little bit different scale than our guys, because I think I heard you one time say, yeah, when you get to 25 million, then this changes or whatever. What phase for you do you enjoy the most as far as business development?
My most enjoyment is from 0 to 5 million of revenue, creating product market fit, and then the early stages of go to market. Um, creating, like, for me personally, I've moved from being more of a service provider. Traditional MSP was one of the businesses I owned. I've owned a lot of businesses. I've had a publishing
Uh-huh.
company, and I've got several different businesses. But when it came to MSP, the original MSP we had was a service provider. Building websites, connecting people's CRM systems up, e-commerce stores. Setting businesses up with their latest tech, innovation and development. Taking orders and implementing was very much what we were doing. But then we built our own product and we spun that out, which was really cool. And we ended up with our own SaaS product, which today we have that product. We're one of the fastest growing companies in the UK. We've got about 35 full-time employees in that business, customers in 150 countries. So it's a really great we spun out our own business, and the fun part is creating that product, getting product market fit, and early stage go to revenue. After about 5 million, you have to repeat what works over and over. You got to crank the handle and do a lot of repetitive best practices, which is
Right.
good. But I'm a bit of a rebel, and I like to break the rules. And I'm the first one to get annoyed because we have to do the meetings a certain way and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Gotcha.
So a quick question from what I heard you just say. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you prefer the initial ongoings of business because you're more of a builder. I find that people either love to build stuff or they like to be the maintenance people, right? And just
Yeah,
maintain. You sound
yeah,
like it sounds like you're the former, not the latter of it.
yeah. I love building and scaling. I can scale, but I don't enjoy scaling as much. If you think about
Well, you like to scale to a certain degree, maybe? Do you like to scale like the first, get that at
yeah,
5 million and then get to maybe
love that
and you're like,
early stage, but
yeah.
I like it becoming scalable, but then doing the scaling. So, like,
Yes.
if you think about a musician like Metallica or something like that, or Coldplay, there's the fun part of creating a new album and then touring it for a little bit
Hmm.
and seeing the audience reaction. But then you've got to tour it every week, and it's like 3 stadiums a week for 2 years, and it's
Yeah.
every week do the concert, play the concert, play the
Fair.
concert, new city, new city. So I really enjoy that. Write the album, see the audience reaction. I can do the
Then
tour of
go
the
do it
concert.
again.
I can tour the concert, but it's not as fun as the early bit.
Daniel,
I
who
think. Well, I think there's something to be said. I agree with that. By the way, I'm the same way. I think Daniel. So that's perfect.
Daniel, who do you bring with you? Like when you look at your strengths and weaknesses, like what's your first couple of hires that or things the type of people you need to build around you to round out your skill set?
There's two answers to that. There's the first time I built a company, and then there's how I do it now. So the
Mhm.
first time I built a company, I had a very specific criteria for who would come onto the team, which was, are they willing to come onto the team? That, right? That was the criteria.
Right.
Are they breathing? Have they got a pulse? And oh my goodness, are they willing to actually do something on my team? That's incredible, right? So anyone who's willing to join my team is welcome on the team. If you've got nothing else to do, then come and work with me. And actually, believe it or not, that first company, we got to 10 million in the first 3 years, and it was just whoever I could drag on into the business was good enough. Today, obviously, I've had a few scale ups and few exits, and now I can kind of pick and choose from my network and say, hey, I think you'd be really great for this. So I've got a CFO that I work with on a lot of projects, and I've got a CTO who I've got an amazing chemistry with, and I've got a really great couple of growth guys who are great at putting their foot down and marketing and doing performance marketing on those sorts of things. So I'm looking for. I run multiple companies at the moment. I've centralized my role in amongst the companies with the CFO role in the companies, and then each of the 7 companies that I have has its own COO and CRO, revenue officer, revenue growth officer, or chief marketing officer. So essentially, the decentralized roles across the 7 companies is an operator and a marketer, and then everything happens within the company there. But the central role is finance and leadership.
Gotcha.
Is a question on this too, and this comes back even when we were talking about being a builder or maintenance person. When you're doing the hiring and making the adjustments, I find that a lot of owners don't know when they should cut themselves off from certain responsibilities and hand it off to the next person. Because well, many reasons, it's their baby, or it's all they've ever known, or back to they want to go back out to and tour again, right?
Yeah.
So, how did you determine where you fit and who you should hire to replace you in some categories?
Look, as a general rule, the hard thing in business at the moment is ramping up the demand for what you do. So if you think about a business is the intersection of demand and supply, and there's the supply of what you do, and there's the winning the business and creating an imbalance of demand and supply tension. The best businesses have waiting lists. They turn customers away who aren't perfect. There's some research that I like to share, which basically says that the top 10% of anyone you'll talk to, if you talk to 100 people, the top 10% have 60% of the budget to spend. So really smart businesses are very, very good at figuring out, are you in the top 10%? If not, I'm going to turn you away, and I'm going to keep available room for the bigger customers, for the ones that suit our purpose of getting where we want to get to. So they become a bit fussy as to who they take on. They get good at saying no to customers as opposed to just taking on absolutely anything. In order to do that, you have to have an abundance of people who are signaling interest. You've got to have people who say, yeah, I'm interested in working with you guys. The truth is that it's almost impossible to delegate that, because anyone who's good at ramping up the demand for a business, they're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for their own businesses. On the flip side, if you win a big contract, you can almost always find talented people to come and deliver the contract. If you're sitting on a big customer, if you're sitting on a pile of cash, there will always be people who will come and do amazing work if you've got the customer to work with. So as a general rule, the entrepreneur or the founder really needs to lean into winning the business and creating what we call demand and supply imbalance, making sure there is more demand than supply.
Well, I totally appreciate that. So, well, now let's come back around to what you're actually going to cover a little bit during the actual event.
Yeah.
So at least we can tease it a little bit so we know what to expect, right? So I totally appreciate you talk about the sweet spot of being an entrepreneur, because I think a lot of people lose. And this is something that actually Andre said to me years ago about Evolve. Even what they talk about at Evolve, what makes that peer group unique is, as opposed to always talking about numbers, KPIs, ROIs, they start talking about your legacy. And did you see your family today? Did you go on date night? Did you do things? They start talking about that stuff, which I think people sometimes, a lot of entrepreneurs lose their identity in the business often. So I like how you open up with, we talked about the balance builder kind of concept. So what should we expect out of your talk on in Chicago this year?
Yeah, we as MSPs we get very good at being selfless and looking after everyone else's needs other than our own. We get really good at being a great service provider to others. What I really want to kind of steer people in the direction of is having a North Star for what you want out of this. You know, like being a little bit, allowing yourself to be a little bit selfish and say, look, if I'm sacrificing for this business, what's the payoff? Like, what does success actually look like? If I could wave a magic wand, what does it come down to? Having asked this question to a lot of entrepreneurs, I end up with three things that tend to come up, which is the things that they're passionate about, and having time and having space and having a way of incorporating their passion into what they do, and doing work that they're passionate about. Solving valuable problems, solving meaningful problems, getting people to say, "Wow, you did incredible work. That was what we needed done." So solving meaningful problems. And getting paid really well, making more money. So we look at this little Venn diagram and we basically say, okay, we need to be passionate, we need to solve valuable problems, and we need to get paid really well. And what compromises do we need to make so that we get all three of those? Because if you go to the extremes, it tends to take you away from the overlap. So if you do the thing that is the most money you could possibly make, you tend to lose the passion, and you're not solving the problems that you want to be solving. If you just simply go all in on the passion, like for me, I love snowboarding. If I just said, "Oh, I'm only going to do stuff that relates to snowboarding," well, that's going to take me away from the money, and it's going to take me away from the problems that I solve and all that. So it's about figuring out, how do we make the compromises? I've got some data and some research and some frameworks that really help to understand each of those three things. Like there are some frameworks for making more money. There are some frameworks to solving more valuable problems and figuring out what the most valuable problems you can solve are. There are frameworks for getting more of the work that you're passionate about, and doing less of the stuff that you hate, more of the stuff that you really enjoy. So there's some frameworks that I'm going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with that central idea of the entrepreneur sweet spot, and then we're going to unpack each of those in three different directions. Unpack one or two frameworks for each of those in an hour, and then allow people to go, okay, that's a step-by-step approach to getting more of what I want.
So it's basically plan your work and work your plan.
Well, you
That's what you're
should
talking about
give the
doing, right?
talk,
I
and
mean,
then we
so
could save 55 minutes, man.
I, you know what? I'll be there. I'll come on stage with you. Don't worry, Daniel. I got it. I got you covered, man. I appreciate that. I think far too often people, you said it earlier on, a lot of people become MSPs or even business owners in general because they already did the work as a living for a job, but they ended up pulling a friend on and said, "Oh, I could use your services." And they kind of consult and fix a few things, and all of a sudden they fix a few more things, and they fix it, and then it's a few more people, and all of a sudden they have a whole side business, and then they're like, "I'm making enough here that I can do this transition," but they never really thought about it as a business.
Yeah, yeah.
There was
And
never
if they do think about it
there
as
was
a
never a
business,
roadmap for them.
yeah, they fall into the trap of thinking that the business comes first, which in the early days it does. And then there has to be a time where you actually say, "Hey, what does this actually do for me?" Because there's no point, running a business that it drives you into the ground.
Yeah. Daniel, I got an interesting observation of you, hearing you speak and talking to you personally and all that stuff. A lot of entrepreneurs are pretty intuitive, and they're good, and they've got really good instincts, and they just kind of feel it. You seem to be very process oriented and methodical. Is that fair? And then two, where'd that come from? Where'd you get that part to add to kind of your entrepreneurial spirit?
I don't know where it comes from, but I love a framework. I really love a good approach. I really believe in frameworks. A framework is an underlying structure where 80 or 90% of the work is already done, and then you just fill in the blanks.
Mhm.
And, if I've got a problem to solve, or if I've got something I want to achieve, the first thing I naturally want to look for is there an existing framework that someone's done the thinking, someone's come up with an approach. Um, and I don't know why I'm very drawn to figuring out a framework that's going to do the heavy lifting year after year, so I don't have to think too hard.
Mhm.
And that is process driven. That's
I
methodical. Yeah.
It's that to do list. I work in lists better than anything else. I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Like when we do a pitch to a customer, we use this thing called capstone, and we do clarity, authority, problem, solution, the why, opportunity, next steps, the essence, and then it basically means that whenever we're creating a pitch for a customer, we can do it in 15 or 20 minutes rather than 2 hours if we just follow that framework. And so it's things like that where I've learnt over the years that if you've got an approach that you can run through, half the work's already done.
Danny, you've got a pretty good definition for a lot of our folks within Evolve are using the EOS framework, and so they talk about visionary and integrators. I heard your definition. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. I heard your definition of visionary. Do you remember what you said, and how do you frame that?
What did I say?
It was centered around how they see global resources. Does that help?
Oh, yeah. So, like, someone woke up with the resource that you might want, and your job is to just go out and have conversations about how that resource gets used. Every resource is already out there. I love one of my favorite things to think about is the movie Top Gun. And when they first decided to make the movie Top Gun, they came up with all these little models, these little airplane models like Star Wars, and they were going to do it like Star Wars, with the battleship as a model and the planes as models, and they kind of like were learning from Star Wars. One of the junior guys in the production crew said, "Have we spoken to the Navy and see if we can borrow their airplanes and their aircraft carrier?" And everyone laughed and was like, "Well, that's stupid, right? As if they're going to give us an aircraft carrier." And they decided to just pick up the phone and make a few phone calls and see if they could talk to the admiral of the Navy. Turns out the admiral said, "You know what? We've been wanting to shoot some videos, some films for recruitment purpose. Maybe a big Hollywood blockbuster that could make it seem pretty cool to join the Navy. Maybe that would be even better." And then they basically discovered that they weren't they were in alignment, right? They were actually in alignment as to what they both wanted. So within a few weeks, they did a test, and they're like, "Yeah, come on, bring on board all the cameras. Let's fly the planes. Let's do the whole thing. Let's shoot the movie." And I love telling my team that, and I love saying, "Someone woke up this morning with the keys to an aircraft carrier." Like, we can leverage any resource if we can get in alignment with people. Any resources that exists on the planet, we could have a conversation about how it gets used.
I love that.
I never knew that story. I never knew that, but that's I'm going to call the admiral later and see what he's doing. I want to take my kid on a boat, so see if we can, and we'll put it on TikTok. So we'll put it on somewhere.
Have you checked?
No.
No. I just I've always wanted to be in a plane. Can I have a go?
That's that mindset thing, because there's how many people never make that phone call, right? Because it sounds ridiculous, but when you walk through it, it was a mutual need, and like you said, those resources are out there. I think that's a really good reminder of how we should be operating and navigating and viewing some of these challenges, so to speak, that we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
Daniel, what's your thoughts? Things can get pretty volatile. Do you think where we're at right now, what do you think about hyper growth type of companies? Is that something that waxes and wanes during economic conditions, or you think there's always a way to have your foot on the gas?
Do you know the majority of unicorns historically have come out off the back of recessions, disruptions? It's very, very common that off the back of really big disruptions, you get a whole host of unicorn companies that pop off the back. Whenever there's a new technology, a general purpose technology like AI, we know we're going to get 50 unicorns in the next few years coming off the back of that. We know that, based on the disruption that will happen globally in the next couple of years, we know that we're gonna have people who sees that and go, "Oh, that's my opportunity." I think in Chinese, the symbol for crisis and the symbol for opportunity is the same symbol.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm pretty bullish.
Let's get to know a little bit about you. Good. Let's talk about you being bullish. Let's ask a couple personal questions. Like, what is your favorite sport? Let's start with that.
My favorite sport is parenting.
You said you had young ones. How old are your kids?
I got 6, 7, and 10. Look, to be honest, I don't spend a lot of time on sport. We play a lot of sport, so it's kicking footballs around in the thing. I just took the kids to the snow, and we did a week of skiing and snowboarding. I'm at that age where they want to do stuff, and I want to embrace that before it changes, because I know that I'm cool for about 5 minutes, and then in 5 minutes from now, I'm going to be the least cool guy on the planet. So I'm just trying to embrace it while I got it.
Well, Andre is older. I have older children. I can tell you're absolutely right. You will not be cool. You will not be their hero anymore. But you will be the person they call when things go wrong. So you will have that.
And it comes back around too.
It comes back around. When I turned 18, I discovered that my dad didn't know anything. And then by 25, I realized he had learned a lot in 7 years. It's incredible.
It's funny how that works.
That's my 30-year-old daughter. That's how she feels about me now. Like, she's like, now she calls me. We talk about life at 30, right? Yeah. Now she's like, now I understand. She made a comment that her colleague said something about how she behaves about certain situations, and she's like, "That's my dad. That's not me. That's my dad." And they're like, "No, that's what." And they're like, "We don't even know your dad, so we can't say it's your dad." I was like, I felt like that was a win for me. That was an absolute win.
Well, unless they were criticizing it.
Daniel, how are you? How are you balancing family and entrepreneurial endeavors?
Oh
What
man,
are your tactics?
Mm-hmm.
the best thing that ever happened was the pandemic for my family, because you know, leading into 2019, I had offices in 8 cities around the world, and I would often be in London and Singapore and Sydney and different places, uh, spending a lot of time flying around, feeling a lot of pressure as the businesses were growing to be in the one place at the right time. And then the pandemic hits, and we just took everything online, and it worked really really well. We took a lot of our team remote, and as a result of being more of a remote organization, we invested heavily into the culture of the company. So the onboarding and the training and the rhythm of meetings and all of that sort of stuff. We just won a gold award for our culture. Here in the UK, we have this thing called the Investors in People Awards, which is a well-known standard for culture. And we just got a gold award, which means we're in the top 5% for organizational culture. And most of our people work remote. And that means we get these incredibly talented people who work from home and work wherever they are. They're free to roam and free to travel. And it just means that for me, as a result of this, most of my time is spent, working at home. So I love the fact, I've structured my life so that I can drop the kids off at school every morning. I can, I've got time to just hang out and play at some point in the afternoon or in the evening. I've cut out all of that travel and commute.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank like
That
a
is awesome.
lot of negativity from the pandemic, but that was a blessing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot. So that kind of, and what we did find though, the businesses that suffered, they didn't know how to work with the remote workforce. So is there anything that you did to help to enable your remote workforce to A, be successful, and B, have balance?
Yeah, like we're really good at having a rhythm of meetings. So every 90 days we do a full reset, where we get the whole team in the room together. Everyone flies in, and sometimes we spend 2 or 3 days together doing a reset. At least once a year we do a big one, and we have great dashboards. Monday mornings we do this thing called the 3 to 6 meeting, which is everyone talks about the 3 to 6 main things that they're getting done this week. And then on Friday, we do the 3 to 6 meeting again, where we talk about the 3 to 6 things we got done this week. It keeps everyone kind of honest about the work they're doing. We don't really measure time people are clocked in. We measure outcomes. So we don't police anyone. We're not tracking keyboard strokes or mouse movements or any of that sort of stuff. We're just very focused on getting outcomes, like you know achieving profitable outcomes, profitable results, getting alignment where people get bonuses and rewards based on real outcomes that are valuable to the company. We use all the tools like Slack, and all of that stuff. Onboarding, make people feel really part of a team, no matter where they are in the world.
Daniel, what's your reset look like? What's that process look like when you bring everybody together?
It's a bit of fun. Like we love to have some long breakfasts and walks in the park together as a team. Some of the best stuff comes from when we're just pacing, when we're out having a walk in the park, and then we'll get into a boardroom. We tend to try and over 2 days we try and have two boardrooms. We try and get one boardroom that's physically high up in the air where we can have a big view over the city, and one boardroom that's really bunkered down. And when we're in the top floor boardroom, we like to think big picture, and we like to think about problem solving 30,000-foot issues. And then we're in the other boardroom, we like to talk about the nitty gritty and putting our rocks in place and getting the next 90 days really pinned down. So we're really good. One of the things we love to do is we have this saying called locking horns. Locking horns is where we give everyone permission to fight, to argue, to say the dumb thing, to say I totally disagree with this. So we love to have a little bit of radical candor, creative disruption. We embrace that. So we don't want to be one of these organizations where people have to walk on eggshells and go along with a plan that they don't really agree with. If they're not totally bought in, we get people to talk about it.
Right. It's awesome.
I like that. So, and I got one last question, then that sort of it sort of segues from what you just said about being able to have that radical candor, and it sounds like it's like a culture thing, right? It's about finding the right culture for you. Whenever you're going to get funding or you're looking for PE backing or anything, you hear lots of horror stories, right? The wrong people backed us; they're giving us the wrong things. How do you? Is there any suggestions you have to determine how you go about getting funding and how you decide on who you should work with for funding?
Yeah, look, I think the funding journey is a bit of a journey. So, like any relationship, it's about setting realistic expectations and being an honest expectations. So, like for example, if you've got other projects and side projects, or if you run multiple companies, you need to, from the outset, let people know this is what I'm up to, and this is what I'm doing. If you want to have a good work-life balance, you need to make sure that's on the table. Because if you're talking to PE, for example, the culture of private equity is it's like training for the Olympics. They want you to be thinking about this, every morning and every night for 6 or 7 years. They want two doubles out of the organization. They want to go from 100 million to 200, 200 to 400. So, private equity, it's like you wouldn't sign up to an Olympic athletes team and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I only like to train a few days a week, and I don't like to push myself too hard." It's like no, and I really don't want anyone to kind of like time me, or I don't want to have to be performing to a clock. It's like, well, that's not the Olympics. The Olympics is all of those things. So if you don't want those things, you shouldn't get in bed with private equity. I think the biggest reason that those kind of PE deals go bad is that a lot of people live in fantasy land that they're getting easy money, or that they're getting into someone who's going to come and save them, as opposed to a high performance partner who's going to demand a lot, right? And the funny thing is if you know what you're getting into, it's great. So, if you know that you're getting, if you've just been accepted onto the Olympic team, and you know that there's going to be days where you work out so hard that you throw up, and you know that you're trying to shave milliseconds off of the clock, and that's what you signed up for, then happy days. You're down for it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, good. That's a great closing response, I feel like, because we are at time. So first, thank you, Daniel, for being on with us again. And thank
I'm
you for
looking forward to
coming
being in
over to the
Chicago.
States
What do I
with
need
us.
to know about being in Chicago?
Oh, I'll make it easy. Italian beef and pizza. That's what you need to know. Those are honestly wow. Like, and there's a debate amongst everybody of what the best pizza places are. It depends on what kind of person. I mean, they're all deep dish, which is it's don't be foolish and be like we should get the large, because one piece of pizza is like a pizza. It is like it's like a lasagna.
There's
It's
Chicago
it's beautiful.
large.
I,
Yeah.
I think there's one other thing
will,
I'll add, Daniel, is the Cubs are in town, and Wrigley Field is an experience. So, just saying.
This is my
Agreed.
first time in
Yes.
Chicago. I'm looking forward to it. I'm there. I'm down for all of it.
Chicago is a great city. Chicago would be like Chicago is almost like London would be, because it is that big, but it's a little bit more spread out, which is nice. It's not as congested. There is congested areas, but
Yep.
you can get out of it really quick too, which is nice. But I will say it's Andre's absolutely correct. Baseball, there's two stadiums left in all of baseball that are considered the mecca of baseball, and that's Fenway and Wrigley. Those are the two old school stadiums, and you're right by one in downtown there. So if you have a chance to check it out, I know that the group is going to be going to a game I forget what is it, Tuesday night you're going, Andre?
Tuesday night. We got a
So-
ticket for you,
I'm
Daniel.
going to see if I can sneak
Yeah,
in.
if you're there on Tuesday,
I got a
yeah, you
special
should
place in
join
my
the
heart
group
for
and go
Chicago.
because it's definitely an experience.
I grew up in the 90s,
Yeah.
and I had Chicago Bulls hats and Chicago Bulls singlets. So I know about this place called Chicago. I've just never been there. So I'm looking forward to making it.
We'll make sure you experience Wrigley.
You'll love it.
We'll have
Also,
a ticket for you.
yeah, and make sure you bring winter and summer clothes because it's Chicago and there's no way of telling what you're going to get. Like,
That's fair.
if it's windy, it could feel like -10 all of a sudden, even though it's
Well,
a weird place, man. It's a
I've
weird
lived
place
20
like that.
years in London, so I think I'll feel right at home. You can get the swings.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So, for those of watching, don't forget that we actually have this. You'll be able to see Daniel live on stage at the Evolve conference in May for the during the community day. There's a QR code right there. If you want to register, we're allowing people to attend that even are not Evolve members to be able to attend the event for the community day and come in, whether your user groups or your MSPs in the area. Plus, if you do go, you get a chance to see him speak and talk to other members to see if there's any kind of interest in being part of the program. The one thing I think I have learned in my career is that showing up to events and talking to random people help you to make decisions on where you should go sometimes. So, better together, I feel like. However, anything I'm missing here, Andre?
No, just there's a variety of content on our community day. In addition to Daniel Priestley, there will be content around sales. We have a planning framework, and we focus on legacy in this meeting. So we will have content centered around purpose and where you're going, and clearly defining that both personally and professionally. And as well as it's just a good time. It's a great community. People are willing to help and serve. And so we'd love it if you join us and come spend some time and hang out and develop your business at the same time. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you again, man. I'm going to try to make it to Evolve so I can come hang out with you again. It's going to be tough. That'll be another event flying from Tampa or Orlando up to there. So, because I have to be on stage in Orlando, but I will try to make it to you.
I'll be in from Miami. Let's get one of those pizzas.
So yeah, I'll be. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for the time, Andre. Good seeing you again. IT Nation, thank you for tuning in. We will see you all very soon. Thanks all.